All right, which one do we like better?
This video is sponsored by Squarespace.
Hey everyone, I'm Ace of Clay. Welcome to another video. Do you remember back in 2019 when I sculpted the Grim Reaper? He's one of the very first pieces I sculpted on this channel, and he's honestly the one that kind of started it all. He's not perfect, but he is definitely my favorite sculpture I've ever made. So today I'm bringing him back, recreating him with my current set of skills, and at the end, you guys can be the judge. Do we like the new one better? And speaking of the Grim Reaper, he is my latest plush, and he is available right now at aceofclay.com. He is super high quality like all of my plushes, with embroidered details, long flowing black robes, his signature scythe, and removable hood. He's 8.5 inches tall, and he would love to haunt your space this spooky season, so head on over to aceofclay.com and add him to your collection. And now without further ado, let's redo my Grim Reaper sculpture.
Alright, first let's take a look at the OG Grim Reaper right here. Starting over with this design kind of feels surreal. Back then, I had no idea this channel would grow at all. I just knew I loved sculpting creepy stuff, and the Grim Reaper was my way of saying, this is what I'm all about. And he was also a big request I got back then. So let's get started with our new one's armature. Just rolled my wire around to create the bottom of the robes, worked my way up, created the arm, and I'm attaching the other arm with some 16 gauge wire along with another piece of wire for the neck. And there we go, we've got a basic skeleton. Now I'm going to super reinforce this armature with some Apoxie Sculpt. This stuff hardens like concrete, and using it is going to make sure I don't run into any issues with sagging or breaking later on, because he's going to be a very awkward shape that kind of challenges physics a little bit. So by covering my armature wire with a nice snake of Apoxie Sculpt, I don't have to worry about anything. You can also use Apoxie Sculpt just on the joints and all the spots where wires meet. After waiting 24 hours for the epoxy to cure, I'm going to brush on some Bacon Bond and start bulking out the rest of them with some Ultralight. I could have bulked them out entirely with Apoxie Sculpt, but it's more expensive than Ultralight, let's be honest. And then I'm just packing in some aluminum foil to fill in the bottom of his robes, and we're just going to encase all of that in some more Ultralight. In the original, there were a few things that always bugged me. Honestly, I only liked him from one angle, and from anywhere else, he just looked kind of off, kind of awkward to me. So with this remake, I really want to fix that. I'm going for a more fluid design that's inspired by the original but feels solid from every direction. I want the forms to twist and flow together so there aren't any weird gaps or dead areas of negative space. That's why nailing the bulking step right now is so important. And once that's baked, it's time to add our final layer of clay. We're going to get this thing completely covered from top to bottom and nice and smooth. People always, and I mean always, ask how I get my clay so smooth, and honestly it comes down to two things. One, using good quality clay, and two, being patient. It's not just dragging my fingers across the surface. I'm actually applying more pressure in the bumpy spots and less pressure where it's already at the level I want. So I'm doing this as I'm dragging my finger down. So it's kind of subtle, but after years of doing it, I've gotten pretty good at it. And here, just like the OG, we're going to put a bunch of snakes of clay to make a bunch of folds and wrinkles. I thought I was going to do something with this little swirly bit there, but I don't like it. So we're going to cut it off and make a little more, normal looking flowing fabric texture. Now with this fabric texture, I want it to look like fabric, but also be inspired by smoke and liquid. I'm aiming for something really fluid and almost like relaxing to look at. It sounds a little contradictory because we're sculpting the Grim Reaper, but that tension is what makes it exciting, right? If I can capture both, it'll give the Reaper this otherworldly vibe, like he's part solid figure, part shifting shadow monster thing. So I'm really building every wrinkle off the one before it for the most part, so that everything flows together and looks really organic and natural. And I still want it to look like the original, but better. Once the body and robes are looking pretty good, we're going to go ahead and start working on the arms. I'm using some flexible clay for this that's not cos clay. And we're going to give them a very stylized, anatomically incorrect skeleton hand. And I'm just going to poke some holes where the fingers are going to go so they're nice and secure. And then we're going to add them one at a time. And we're going to repeat this process for the other arm. Once the body is pretty much done, it's time to start working on his head. I covered a ball of aluminum foil in some more clay, and we're going to start by poking out the eye sockets. For this head design, I want it to feel brand new while still keeping the same charm and whimsy as the original. So I'm using the OG as my starting point and then adding more detail and shifting a few things around to give it a fresh look without losing what made it special in the first place. I also want to make it a little bit bigger compared to the rest of his body. Now let's pop on that little nasal bone. I remember saying that in the original video too. Kind of weird deja vu moment. Now instead of just carving in the shape of the teeth like on the original, I'm going to use my little spoon here to press in an indent for each of the teeth, and then I'm going to add each one individually and detail them. This is going to give it more dimension, more interest, and I think it's going to look cooler overall. Now for his big underbite. And if you didn't know, I'm using my Reaper Black spoon tool right now. I do sell this tool on my website, aceofclay.com, if you want to grab one for yourself. It's been my go-to sculpting tool since day one. Now I'm really starting to see all of these features and details come together, and I'm really liking it. Now let's just temporarily pop on his head so we can brush it with clay softener to remove fingerprints before we bake it. And once everything's baked and completely cooled down, it's time to make his hood. Just gonna embed a piece of wire in the front of my sheet of clay here, blend it in with my spoon tool, and then finagle it until it looks right. Honestly, that's the best way to explain this hood process here. So I'm just sort of adding some wrinkles and texture before I wrap it around his head. And I want to make it look like the original, but I want it to look better, and I just need to mess with it until it looks right. And I think I get to a point where it does. The wire in the front is super helpful when it comes to shaping things out, and it just stays put, and I don't have to worry about it sagging in the oven or anything. Now it looks kind of funky just hanging there like that, so I'm going to attach the bottom of it to his chest, and this looks way better. And kind of like the wind's blowing it a little bit.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break from our video to talk about our sponsor, Squarespace. I've been using Squarespace for over 6 years now, and it has been a game changer. It's helped me grow my online presence and streamline my work effortlessly. As a business owner, I need a website that functions seamlessly and looks great, and Squarespace delivers. One of my favorite features is their SEO tools. Squarespace makes it easy to get discovered with built-in meta descriptions and sitemaps, which helps my site rank higher without any extra effort. I also love Squarespace payments. I really like it because I can process all of my payments through the same dashboard that I'm already using. It's super easy to set up, and I can accept payments instantly through multiple methods like Apple Pay and Klarna. No hassle, just smooth transactions. And if you're selling products or services like I am, their online store tools are top-notch. From inventory to fulfillment, everything is built in for a seamless experience. Ready to build your site? Go to squarespace.com, start a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/aceofclay to save 10% on your first purchase.
And I just want to smooth out and texture the inside of the hood a little bit more. And then we can start adding the pointy hat part of it. That is my absolute favorite part on the original. I think it makes them very unique looking, you know? So I just made that cone shape out of foil, covered it in clay. Then we're going to get it into the shape I want and then blend it in carefully with the rest of the hood. Now this blending process was not ideal because I'm blending a chunk of clay onto clay that is thin and unsupported. So it was a little tricky and I had to finesse things a little bit longer than usual, but it works out and I end up adding a bunch of wrinkles that match the wrinkles along the sides, and it looks really cool in the end. And to soften my clay while I'm still working on it, I'm brushing on some Bacon Bond. Normally you don't want to do this because it makes the clay surface really sticky, but it really does help you blend if you're patient. Doing this also makes the clay pick up pressure super easily, so you gotta just make sure you're being gentle and you're using a very light touch. Now that the hood is at a decent point, we're going to work on the scythe. I've got some 16 gauge wire here. For the handle, I am doubling up my wire just to give it a little extra reinforcement, and then I'm leaving some excess clay off the top for the blade itself. Now I'm just going to brush on some Bacon Bond and roll it into a nice snake of clay. And we're going to give this scythe some character, of course, and bend it into a nice organic branch-like shape. To texture it, I'm using the long neck of my little spoon to swirl around the handle, and then of course we're going to add some little snakes of clay to give it some more dimension at the top here. And let's add a little pokey branch off the side here. And let's keep going with all that texture. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Let's pre-bake it and make the blade later. Now we're going to move on to the sleeves. I'm going to cut out the shape of the first one from a nice flat sheet of clay. This is going to fold over onto itself. And just like with the hood, we're going to add some wire in the front. This is going to allow me to control the flow of the hanging fabric. And then before we go any further with that, we are going to work on the upper part of the sleeves by adding a snake of clay, of course, and texturing it like fabric, just like the rest of his robes. Now, in an effort to make this new piece more balanced, I decided to shorten the sleeves. I love the way the original had those long sleeves that dragged all the way to the ground, but here I want them to flow perfectly within the negative space created by his S-shaped body. Honestly, the sleeves were really cool on the OG, but with this new design, I don't really even miss them. It just feels more natural. And I'm just carefully pinching that back seam so it all goes together, and then we can pinch in some wrinkles here and there and make it match the main body. And we did the same thing on the other side. I love how these turned out. And before his final bake, we're going to add some protruding vertebrae down his big hunchback. Blending uncured clay in with cured clay is super easy when you brush on some clay softener and or Bake and Bond. And then after that scythe handle is completely baked, we're going to go ahead and make the blade. I'm just going to cut out the shape of my blade here from a flat sheet of clay and then double it up, add another piece to the other side to embed that wire, and then we're going to shape it out really nice and sharpen that bottom edge. And let's finish it off with some little cracks. And brush it with clay softener to remove fingerprints. Now, the scythe and the Grim Reaper are ready for the oven. After baking, it's time to paint. He looks pretty good. I like him. I'm going to start with this nice matte black coat here. We're going to paint the entire thing with this. This is Kaleido Matte Black Primer. This is made by Gallery, who also makes the airbrushes I'm using on this project. Honestly, I could not recommend their airbrushes more. I say this in every video that I use them in. And if you want to save 10% at gallery.com, you can use my code ACEOFCLAY because airbrushes aren't cheap. So if you've been thinking about airbrushing or you're kind of scared to take the leap, take it from me. It is not as hard as you think. It actually makes the painting process so much faster. Painting all of this black with a paintbrush would have taken like 3 times as long. And I never, and I will never promote brands or products that I do not love. Now here I'm just going back and forth with different shades of gray. I'm going in with some light gray here, and then I go back in with some black, and then we go in with some purple, and we're just trying to make this black as interesting as possible while still having it look solid black, if that makes any sense at all. And as you can see, I've switched up from my Gallery Classic to the Mobius 0.2mm. The Classic is great for covering large areas and laying down general coats, but the Mobius gives me a much smaller, more focused spray for precision work, which is kind of what I'm doing here. I'm trying to hit all those wrinkles. And once we're done airbrushing, it's time to bust out the paintbrushes and start painting his skull. I'm being very careful not to get any of this white onto any of that smooth black I used on his robes with my airbrush. Now I'm just going to dab on some lighter off-white, focusing on the middle of his face a little bit just to give it some more dimension. And using a tiny script liner, I'm going to touch up the black around his eyes. And with that same script liner, I'm going to add a dark brown wash in between all of his teeth. I really want to make them pop. And for some added depth and dimension, I'm going to add some little swirls of black in between some of those wrinkles on his robes. And then we're going to add some metallic silver to the scythe blade and then dry brush some brown on the handle. And let's rust up the blade a little bit with some brown. And for the last step, let's stick on his scythe with some Loctite gel. All right, now say it with me.
And he's done! My new Grim Reaper sculpture is complete. Let me know which one you like better in the comments. Just for a quick size comparison, the new one is significantly larger. Now with this new version, I did address a bunch of things that bugged me about this guy. I didn't like how this one really only looks good from one angle, and that would be like this angle right here, I think. And then from the front, he was always just kind of awkward looking to me. And he's pretty rough around the edges everywhere. He's not very smooth at all. And this new one kind of fixes that, where he looks cool from every angle. He's got that neat S shape that is enhanced with this piece of his robes that are, you know, folded upwards like that. I like that his scythe is pointed outward. His face is definitely more detailed, and he is definitely smoother. I think my skills have definitely improved, but if I had to pick objectively, I like the new one better. But the sentimental value of this guy will never be topped. I think he is a better sculpture. I think the composition is better, and I really like how he turned out. So again, let me know in the comments which one you like better. And as always, thank you so much for watching and being here. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Check me out on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Ace of Clay. Don't forget to grab your Grim Reaper plush at aceofclay.com, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.